Cord.
Hello, I'm Nick Briggs.
Hello.
Hello, dears.
That's Paul McGann.
It's Nicholas Briggs.
Jason Haigh-Ellery. And here we are at Chicago TARDIS.
By
Except
hook or
we're
by
not.
crook. It's that time of year, I don't know about you, but it's been years now, and you get that, you've just got a sort of clock. I have anyway. Maybe it's because it's my birthday as well in November. But November comes, you think, oh yeah, that means, we're going to be in Chicago. Might be in Long Island, do a bit of Christmas.
I realise this is the first time in 25 years I haven't been to America for Thanksgiving.
Good Lord.
I know. So I've got turkey withdrawals.
You're the turkey that's been pardoned this year.
I have, yes.
I've just had a vegetarian burger.
And?
Amazing.
That was my Thanksgiving.
Because you've gone very vegetarian, haven't you?
Well, my wife's vegetarian and I'm at home all the time. So there we go. I maybe get a curry once every 2 weeks and that will have meat in it. I'll go to the takeaway, or a jumbo battered sausage from the fish and chip shop. Can't believe I just said that at Chicago TARDIS. Yeah.
If your experience is anything like mine, mind you, it was 30 odd years ago, 40 years ago, turning vegetarian, you'll sort of hang on eating meat for a year, maybe 6 months, a year, and then you'll stop. Then you'll just go full veggie.
Well, we'll see. I mean, I'm not...
Listen to your Uncle Paul.
I will. I always do. I'm not intending to go vegetarian, but, if you live with the vegetarian and she mainly does the cooking.
Yeah.
And I don't like to cook meat anymore. I used to enjoy that. It's, it's messy and disgusting. So, yeah, maybe you see, I'm sort of falling out of love with it. What do you normally have the Thanksgiving dinner at Chicago? Obviously not with a turkey, but
You talking to me? Oh yeah, there's always a veggie option, isn't there, or a meatless option? Now I'm picturing it and wishing even more that I was there now, in that huge room. Yeah, just have it without the tea. You know what? You've got to cheat as well occasionally. I mean, I haven't eaten meat for years and years and years, but on the occasional, I'll have a little bit of turkey sometimes on Boxing Day. I just cheat. You just have to cheat sometimes. Maybe it's a bonfire night. Maybe have a sausage. No, maybe not.
A jumbo battered sausage?
No, that would be reckless. I mean, my body being a temple and everything.
Well, I mean, it gives you, being a vegetarian does give you extra years, doesn't it?
I don't know.
I think, meat just hastens the final curtain.
Sometimes I miss it. I mean, now I am talking about, 40 odd years. I can still remember the joy, the taste, the sensation of, it's always bacon. Why is it bacon? Bacon and eggs. Because it's breakfast, I guess, because it was such a comfort. Reminds me of my mum and dad's house. Teenage years, pretending to be posh and having a gammon steak, in some, whatever, down in town in Liverpool,
With a pineapple.
With a pineapple, yeah. It was very.
I always have it with an egg.
It was very 70s, yeah.
You're classy, you are.
Well, we thought we were back in the day, going out to these little, spending the few, like first getting wages, when I first worked at an office job first, the only office job I ever did, that's what we used to do. We used to think, if I'm ever going to be an adult, I better learn how to eat a gammon steak with pineapple or something. And order red wine or whatever it was, never seen wine. Anyway.
Was this before you came down to London?
Yeah, I came down. I followed my big brother to London shortly after. That job, I did a job, literally just a file clerk. I was 17 maybe. I left school early, much to my parents' chagrin. You know, I wasn't very clever, and I fluffed the exams, and anyway, I got this job, and it was working for Liverpool City Council. I was a civil servant briefly. I had to sign the official secrets and everything. You know, it's quite a thing. Worked with social workers. Worked in the social services department of the local council. Just making, you know, literally the ship's cat. Just doing cardboard files for these social workers who were upstairs. But it was and for about 6 months. But it was a lesson in life, and it was in this bit of Liverpool, which we called the Dingle, which sounds actually quite picturesque, but nothing could be further from the truth. And this is the real hard bit of the South End, tenement flats and stuff. Anyway, that was that, and I just couldn't hack it. My big brother had gone down to London a year earlier. Well, he was 2 years older than me. And I followed him down, and that was it. That's what I did. Yeah. He was trying to be a musician. I didn't think about being an actor, not for another 2 or 3 years. We worked in retail. I sold shoes. We worked in shoe shops. Sold jeans. It was a big thing back in the 70s, you know. God, do I sound like old Methuselah all of a sudden? But even that, you know, working in retail, I suppose if you're good at selling things, I suppose you could be an actor. You know, there's elements of it that kind of correspond. It's like they say, you know, you tell a joke, you can be an actor. And we were quite good salesmen, I think. You know, once you sort of learned the ropes. And then I became an actor. Went to the school. Yeah. And have never regretted a day. Well, actually, I have a few times.
Speaking about being a vegetarian for a moment, do you think the doctor's a vegetarian?
You know what? The more I run with him, yeah, I think lacto intolerant. What is it? He's got something going on. You know, I mean, there's something. You know,
it's probably gluten free.
You know, if he was on the plane, you know, when you go, like particularly with British Airways, you know, they give you that little drop down list. What you want to eat, you know, he'd definitely be something in the middle, something spooky. What would he be? What would he have? He'd have Asian vegetarian.
Yeah.
That's what he'd have of the British Airways drop down list. Why am I giving them a free plug? They wouldn't do the same for us, would they? Yeah.
I don't think John Pertwee.
Or the one that says OVO in it. What's the one that says OVO in it? That would be the doctor.
OVO?
Anyway, yeah. Egg, innit?
During all this madness of the pandemic, Paul, you've done quite a few Doctor Who things from that room.
From actually and here they are. They come through. Amazing. It's a production line. You do them, you record them, somebody makes them and puts them back through the door. About 6 weeks later. The magic of lockdown. Yeah. You probably can't hear it because he's. But this is my bedroom, and there's a room above. I can hear him now. Joe is working. My eldest son, he's got a studio upstairs. And I can hear the bass kind of coming through the ceiling here a little bit. Or I can feel it.
I can't hear it.
And that's where we work. Thankfully, when we were locked down, you know, he had that anyway, and we were up and running. So that's what we've done. But, you know, and we've all had to cope as best we can. Occasionally we have to stop for, you know, trucks backing in, too much bird song, mad drunk students howling in the street. You know, we're right in the middle of a city here, you know, on a kind of rat run and on a walk of shame. So, you know, you've got to pick your hours, I think. Otherwise it's tricky. We did to get, I mean, not just Big Finish, which is great, you know, just keep them coming, by the way, boys. Sessions are fantastic fun. But I've also been doing audio books, which I don't normally do because they're slightly thankless. But now it's, you know, but they're a lot of work for, you know, anyway.
Well, Nick does a few audiobooks, so he knows exactly what you mean. It's a lot of work.
It's a hell of a lot of work. But have you done history books, Nick?
No, I haven't.
They're the ones to get into that because
I've just read a history book, but
did you?
Yes.
What period?
It was Waterloo, and it was Bernard Cornwell had written a history book about it. You know, he wrote Sharp.
What a real, genuine history,
yeah, and it's full of first-hand accounts and letters and things.
I should know that. Is he a historian as well as a novelist?
Yeah, well, he has a great interest in history, and I think that I think that provoked him to write a history book that's as engaging as an exciting novel, and it really is. It's the second time I've read it. I read it a couple of years ago, and the other day I saw it on the shelf, and I thought, I think I'm going to read that again. Actually, I'm in the mood for that. It's
a fantastic story, isn't it? You're never tempted to go over there and have a look at the site, because most of it's still.
I am tempted, actually. Yeah, I've watched some documentaries online about it, and I thought, I really must go and see it one day. Although it's completely changed because they built a monument, and they took all the earth from the ridge, the famous ridge that. Welcome to the history panel. The ridge where Wellington's forces kind of hid behind that ridge, but they've dredged it up to make a huge monument. And when Wellington visited the battlefield years later, he said they've destroyed my battlefield.
Because it forms Waterloo forms part of not the founding myth of the country, but it's part of the English myth.
We're the only ones who call it Waterloo as well.
Well, exactly right. And of course, and half of the troops. It was an Allied battle, really, wasn't it?
Dutch.
There were English there, but Prussians and Dutch. I think the Prussians made up half of the Allied force. So German friends and colleagues are often fond of telling us it was them what won Waterloo, not us, kind of thing.
No, I suppose one could argue the generalship of Wellington. He
carried the day.
He held his nerve when many generals would have thought. They really looked like they were beaten at several key points. But he relied on the Prussians turning up, the Germans, and he took Blucher at his word and stuck on the ridge until he turned up. And sorry, this is getting into far too much detail about Waterloo.
Well, no, it's interesting because you should be doing Doctor Who and Waterloo at some point.
Well, there is a script that I've just written that contains an element of it because
you just segued into that so we could plug it.
Not at all. It's top secret.
Oh, is it? Okay. Well, particularly don't tell anyone at Chicago TARDIS.
No, I don't tell them.
Shh. The lockdown's been. Lockdown. Of course, because lockdown generally it has its compensations. Naturally, depending on how you lock down and with whom. But I've rediscovered, reading. I was a reader as a kid, but I don't know. It's easy to get distracted and forget you like it. But now, I suppose I'm like I say, this is my bedroom. I'm not going to show you my bedroom because that would be foolish. But it's basically just a load of books over there on a bed, on an unmade bed. I don't sleep anyway, so occasionally when if I ever do fall asleep, I tend to wake up with a book on my face or there's another one there on my chest. I'm surrounded by, looks like a crime scene. But I just finished the history book as well on that one, the interest about the British, the colonial interest in slavery.
Oh yeah.
That's a great book, and I read a 2-volume thing, which took a couple of weeks, on my mate Frank's book about Hitler, the Hitler years, which has been great, So, but they're quite intense days, aren't they? Yeah. I remember because I read some of the Sharp, talking about the Cornwell. Years back, I read the Sharp books for audio, and I was never more exhausted in my life after those sessions. Because of course it's you. It's only you. The point is looking around for backup.
That's the thing. You just see that.
You're told it's you with a mic. Yeah, and you're playing everybody, all the crowds. The men, women, and children. You're doing the battle scenes. on your Todd. You know, what a
Yeah.
hoot.
Takes a special kind of dedication for people who do it all the time. I don't know how they do.
Some people are just fantastic at them. You know, really fantastic at them. You know, and I envy that. So there we are.
Yes, our friend Barnaby Edwards, who I believe you know, he does a lot of audiobooks. And he can read anything, you know, nothing's too difficult for him. He can do The Origin of Species. He can do, you know, he loves the challenge.
You know, some actors are like that. They can, you know, some readers are like that. They can make anything sound interesting. That's a real skill, you know, a real skill. That. Maybe a few years back there was, well, you may remember, remember when there was a strike. It's been about 15 years ago. And suddenly actors were stopped, prevented, or didn't want to do commercial voiceovers, readings, and everything else. So remember that. And
yes,
so
I do.
you know, so the companies themselves said, "I've sod that." You know, anyone could do that. Anyone can just, you know, read off a script and do a 60-second this or a 30-second that, or, you know, a bit of an old audio book. But of course, they couldn't. They tried, and some of them were okay. But you know, it's a kind of arcane skill, but it's a good one to have, I think. Anyway, enough of that precious nonsense.
When you're doing, I'm dragging this back to Doctor Who, when you're doing a Big Finish Doctor Who in a sort of a remote recording circumstance, I'm guessing you have done it in a variety of ways. Sometimes you've done it with just the director reading in, and sometimes you've done it with the full cast in your ears. Is that right?
That's right. I know. I mean, probably like you, I know which I prefer. Sometimes it's just a case of having to, isn't it? There's no other way. You've got to. You just got to read your bits. But it's always nicer to have a. I mean, no disrespect, but it's always nicer to have an actor hitting the ball back, isn't it? To you. It alters everything. It just keeps there's a rhythm to it. It's the same as well. Again, this is boring for people who aren't actors, but you know, even if you go up for in audition situations, if you say if you went to a casting agent's office and to read on camera, mostly you don't read with an actor, you read with an assistant, and it's the same. You know, you got to get used to it, but it's the problem is the same. For some reason, an actor just, like I say, just hits the ball back.
And there seems to be an unwritten rule that when someone is reading in, that they have to do it really, really badly. You know, you're saying, "But darling, I love you." And they're saying, no, my darling, I cannot give my life to you.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like...
It's like, a speak your weight machine.
Yeah. It's like considered rude for them to actually attempt to give you a performance. I noticed that on set when like the first assistant is reading in for an actor who isn't there, and it's just, you know, dead.
Yeah. Yeah.
That led me once to volunteer to be Jenna Coleman with Matt Smith, because he was doing a scene and she was meant to.
I bet you loved it, didn't you?
Did you dress in the red pit? You know,
I bet you pushed people out the way to volunteer. I bet, didn't you? I know you.
What did Matt say of your Jenna Coleman then?
Well, it was in a story where she was meant to be. It turned out that she was a Dalek, but he's hearing her voice as her, and so I was doing the Dalek voice stuff. But there were bits in between that was her talking to him, and Matt is very much the kind of actor who wants everything to be real. You know, he wants, you know what I mean? He wants as much there as possible to, as you say, Paul, to bounce off. And I could tell it wasn't going too well with the first assistant very blankly reading these quite emotional lines in. And I shouted over the back of the scenery. I said, "Matt, I can turn off the ring modulator." And I said, "I know I'm not a girl, but I can read those lines in and give you a bit of a performance." And without hesitation, bless his cotton socks, he said, "I would love that. Can you do that, please?" And we did it. And it was all fine. And the only person who applauded was the head Sparks guy. Who's really like, he looked over and he was going, "Bloody God."
Oh.
Bless him.
I like it that Matt likes it real.
Yeah, definitely.
I like that. He's a wonderful actor, isn't he? But again, what we were, because my kids made me watch The Crown, and I wasn't that into it, but I thought I'd better sort of bone up, and I watched some previous episodes, and some he was in. He was just fantastic.
Yeah, he is.
Just fantastic.
The charisma is incredible.
I was going to say it's the screen presence, isn't it? He's got so much charisma.
Yeah.
No, it's getting a bit Marxist, isn't it? No charisma, no presence, no charisma's present. Anyway, whatever they were talking about, but he's fantastic. I mean, we know that, but I'd kind of forgotten. I remember first seeing him. When would that have been? Way back, 2004, maybe 5. He was a teenager, and I saw him in a play at the National. What's it called? Simon Stevens, On the Shore of the Wide World. And even I'd never seen him, but I remember in the interval people going, Who is that kid? He stood out, in a really brilliant cast as well. And then I managed to speak to him afterwards, just to say, because I always try and do that, interview with actors, and realized that he didn't. I thought he was from one part of the country. Anyway, he did this voice that he was using wasn't his own. I mean, this accent and everything. I remember thinking, wow. Anyway, you'd have to have been there really, but he was quite brilliant, And sometimes when you see young actors and you just go, yeah, there's one. And he was like, definitely. He was going places.
Yeah. Something very special.
He's going to end up on The Crown, that lad.
And so he did. You seen The Crown, Jason?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it actually. I must admit, I enjoyed the first 2 seasons more than the second 2, because it's stuff I didn't know. If you see what I mean. Yeah,
as it gets closer to remembered stuff, remembered history, do you think we get just? I suppose it's inevitable. We just get a little bit more critical.
Yes, because we lived through it.
Yeah, very much. Yeah, totally.
It's getting a bit spooky now, and then it's in the 80s and 90s, and I thought, what's her name, as Thatcher was fantastic.
Oh yes.
Julian Anderson. I mean, that's eerie.
I thought I thought
the first minute I'm thinking, no, you're not going to get away with that. You can't. No, we can't watch hours and hours of that.
Yeah.
It was so strong. But then after a few minutes, you just go, okay. It was so. It was such a kind of full fat performance. But just brilliant.
Apparently, she went to 2 different voice coaches working simultaneously to get the voice, because it was so hard to get, and it is so spot on. It's interesting. I was watching on YouTube, and it threw up a clip from the Iron Lady with
Meryl
Streep doing it, and I was watching, and I thought, actually, do you know what? Gillian Anderson did this a lot better.
She did a much more accurate vocal in terms of, the only thing I would say controversially, and I know folks this is what you want to talk about, that she made an interesting decision to play the older Thatcher right from the word go, because the early Thatcher in 1979, it was after the Falklands War, I think, that she got all the voice coaching, and she took her voice down an octave and became slower and quite different. The early Thatcher was very shrill.
Yeah, there's actually, whether it's on YouTube or something, there was a documentary so during the lockdown sometime this year.
On the BBC, yeah.
And there's clips, that's right, and there's clips of her being coached.
Yeah.
And we'd only ever heard about it, but it was great to see it. And of course it makes perfect sense, when would that have been? 81, 82, 83.
She revamped herself, but that's the version that Gillian Anderson gave us right from the word go. So I found that a bit irritating that it wasn't that accurate, but there's a lot of they didn't have the poll tax riots, which was instrumental in Thatcher going, and they just skipped to one side of that.
Was there a miners' strike?
Yeah, well, quite.
I mean, only like the nearest we've come to civil war since the 1660s. I'm not a mention. But
as you say, as it comes into our life experience, it becomes more controversial for us.
Yeah. Can I talk a controversial? Do you like the royal family and all of that? Are you a sort of monarchist type, or
no, not at all. No, I mean, they're very good for tourism.
Who told you that?
They did, I think. Have you met any of them?
Yeah.
Well, give us your meeting the royals.
I met Prince Philip by accident. He came in because the school I went to was the Royal so and so. So they came, she came, and he came. And if you weren't going to be presented to the Queen, then they because it was all kinds of squaddies and police and everything, security details. So you were quarantined in, I think we were in some common room, and he just went AWOL and he came into this room that we were in. So we sort of met him by accident. He seemed rather energized, caffeinated or something. He was like full of beans, Never met the Queen. Better hurry up, I suppose.
Yeah.
God bless her.
I met Charles and Camilla.
What was he like?
Well, nice. I mean, people ask me that, and I said they're both nice, but they ought to be nice, really. I mean, they get all that money and all that privilege. They ought to be nice as well, and they were both very nice. But I'll tell you the story, which was they came to see the Doctor Who studios, and they got me in to do a bit of Dalek stuff for when Charles came round, and they said he wanted to have a go on the ring modulator and do the voice and everything.
Do your party piece.
And he, so they stood and talked to me. But the awful, embarrassing thing is that how sometimes very posh English people, the voice is right back in the throat, and sometimes it goes so high, you can't really understand what they're saying. Yeah. So he was fine. I could understand him, but when this gets rid of any possibility of my knighthood, obviously. That Camilla said to me, and I couldn't understand what she was saying. I was also incredibly nervous, like more nervous than I've ever been in my life, from being very disrespectful beforehand and going, I don't care, blah, blah, blah. And then they turned up and I was terrified.
Well, they're celebs, aren't they? They're big celebs.
And he's the heir to the throne, And not that, of course, means anything to me. But anyway, so
I can tell it does.
Yeah, exactly. It's bizarre, isn't it? It's conditioning.
It's bred into us, though, isn't it?
Yes, that's right, sir. That's right.
Yeah, doff cap, tug forelock.
But she asked me something. I didn't understand what she'd asked me. So I said...
It could only be one of two things.
What's that?
What do you do, or have you come far?
Yes. Well, she knew what I did. But so I said, I'm terribly sorry, what did you say? And she repeated it. And now either because it was or I was just nervous, or both, I still didn't understand. And I remember thinking, I can't ask again because this is just ridiculous. So I did the stupidest thing in my life, which is I attempted to answer a question that I hadn't heard. So I went, yeah, well, I don't know. And they were just, and for me, this seemed to go on for hours. I'm sure it was fleeting seconds, but they're just looking at me while they'd obviously asked me something to which the answer was very simple. And I was pondering like she'd asked
gone into a monologue.
The meaning of life.
Did some flunky or equerry just give you a dig?
Well, I kept looking at Charles as if to say, you talk to me because I can understand you. And he was looking at me as if to say, but my wife's just asked you a question. Eventually, they just wandered off, and he made some comment about audiobooks as he went and waved to me. But you can just imagine her thinking, what a strange man.
Yes.
I asked him what the time was, and he seemed to ponder it like it was the meaning of life.
Oh.
Humiliation.
I was sent, years ago, I was sent this script. Or rather, I wasn't sent the script, But my agent called me and she said, I want to send you a script. I said, well, okay. You know where I live. She said, hang on a minute. But it's contingent on your answering a question. I said, what? She said, yeah, there's a question. And depending on your answer, I can send you, you'll get the script or you won't. And it's a yes/no answer.
Wow.
Yeah. And the question was something like, you know, are you something, you know, emotionally attached to the memory of the late Princess of Wales? And this was about 2-3 years after she died, Diana. And I said, no. And they sent me the script.
Ah.
And we did
What was the script?
I played Andrew Morton in the script, the journalist guy who ends up, she corresponds with him. They never meet, but she sends him tapes. He writes this book up over that year. The book ends up selling squillions. And, you know, so she kind of tells her story. In fact, the first 20-30 pages of the book is this verbatim, there are these, you know, these extracts of the tapes that she sent. Anyway, so that was that. And so bang went my knighthood. I was never in line for a knighthood anyway, but and it was made by there wasn't a British company that would dare to touch it, so it was produced by a German company. But we made this picture, called The Biographer.
Is it available on Amazon?
No idea. I'm sure you could find it somewhere.
The Biographer. Oh, look, Jason's gone to get it.
No,
he's probably
dog.
Oh, he's got to let his dog in.
The dog was barking and making noises at the door.
Yeah, needs some love, man. Needs some attention.
Feel really bad. Hello, doggy.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. I mean, my dad was actually the chairman of the Princess Margaret's charity for a little bit. So I did get to meet Princess Margaret at one point.
See, now I wouldn't have minded meeting her. You know, she seems quite interesting. Well, you know, she just one hears the stories and reads the tales, and yeah, but she sounds like a hoot.
Yeah, no, quite a character.
You know, yeah.
My wife used to assist on Lord Snowdon on photography things. Yeah, he once phoned.
I met him. He took my picture once.
Oh, did he?
And he was really lovely. He was really lovely. And
very talented man.
Yeah, sweetheart. And he gave me good advice, which I'm not going to share with you because that would be telling.
What? Never marry a princess.
In kind of thing. Yeah. Mind how you go. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. What else can we talk about?
Well,
isn't it nice to catch up, chaps?
It is nice.
It's lovely to catch up.
What an age we're living in. You know, without this, you know, obviously, if we'd been locked down 15, 20 years ago, we just couldn't have done this. We'd have had to be on those old-fashioned telephones.
Yes.
Even
well,
if
also, 15, 20 years ago, Big Finish would have been in a lot of trouble because we wouldn't have had the downloads. We wouldn't have had people recording from home, you know. But thankfully, it's been really good.
Met up with India online just a few days ago. I hadn't spoken to her for yonks.
That was for a convention, wasn't it?
Yeah, and we were remembering, and Conrad, you know, who I hadn't seen or heard for years, you know, and we were, you know, remembering for people the beginning, you know, and it is 20 years now since we started doing it.
Yeah.
And we came to, or rather you came, because I'm still here, came to Bristol. Why did you come to Bristol? Because did I get all sort of grand and insist that you all jumped on the train?
It was your agent. It was your agent. I think it was you, but it was the agent. Because
they just basically said we'd get more of you if we came to where you lived.
It was actually,
boys, look, she'll do it, but you've got to get on a train to Bristol.
At the time you were doing Hornblower.
Oh, is that right?
Your agent said he spent so much time abroad, he'd love to do a job where he was in Bristol so he could put the kids to bed at night.
That's absolutely right. Of course.
And he said he'd love to do it, and he'd do the week with us. But if he can put the kids to bed, that would be wonderful for him, because he's always going to London to work, or, you know, you were in Barbados or something, or Jamaica. Which one was it?
Well, on the Hornblower.
Yeah, it was somewhere really lovely, though.
I wish. I think we'd been in, we'd been in Spain, in Menorca.
Oh, right.
Okay. Yeah.
So so basically they said, and I said, well, fine. And it ended up with us doing what effectively became a rep company going on tour, didn't it, Nick?
That's right. Because and also, Paul, while you put the kids to bed, we went down the pub.
Yeah. That's right.
We were having a merry old time.
Yeah, and then I got a little bit envious, and then I let someone else put the kids to bed and joined you.
I was going to say, you did come down once.
Yeah, remember being in the Corrie because we were working in was it the BBC had that studio then?
Yes.
But they sold it, I think, and then we're renting it, and so we rented it off the owner. Is that right?
Yeah, the BBC had spent an awful lot of money doing it up, and then they'd sold it. And then it was actually being administered by the Bristol Old Vic at the time.
It was a grand studio, wasn't it? It was great.
It was a lovely studio.
Remember, because Massive were working upstairs, weren't they?
I've let her out now. Sorry.
I know.
This dog is she's so demanding.
It's life. Yeah.
But I remember, because the studio, it was a proper sort of radio play setup. It was old-fashioned, you had the sort of mic placements in the big room. You had the sort of sound effects boxes, and
there was gravel. There was gravel on the floor,
and sort of different sort of doorknobs, and which is all quite romantic. I don't think I'd ever done a radio play, so it was quite exciting. And then, of course, contrast that with where eventually we'd end up, particularly at Moat, which is, I say rough and ready, it's perfect, but it's purpose built for us, isn't it? You got the isolation booths, you got we're all still in the same room, we can see each other, but we're all basically in wooden boxes with windows in it. But this was a swanky studio, wasn't it? When we first met in Bristol. The Beeb had an interest. I might get that mixed up now. But was that just with Sharda? But the Beeb had a sort of interest, didn't they?
That was Sharda, wasn't it?
In what we were doing.
Yeah. With Sharda, what they did was they gave us an enhancement, as they say.
What's that? Sounds like a sandwich. Or
yes. So that basically, so that they would be able to broadcast it, and they said, right, and there's the money, and we had I think you said at the time when you walked in, you went, bit of a fruity cast, you said. Because it was an all-star cast, wasn't it?
Wasn't James Fox in it?
Yes, he was. Yes,
of course.
You were very impressed. I remember.
Is still my absolute acting hero.
Yes.
Probably more than anyone. The reason. Well, him and Derek Jacobi, weirdly enough. No, Derek Jacobi, folks. You don't know what this means to me. Can you see that picture? Check it out.
So now you've worked with Derek Jacobi. Had you worked with him before? Or?
No.
He's so lovely, isn't he?
Well, actually, once, but not with him. We did a sort of years back. We did a sort of carol thing in a church, and concert, and he did a bit, and I did a bit. But this is the first time. And when I was 16 and still at school, before I flunked it, like I was saying, and the first time that I ever went to see a play. I'm going to mix my stories up. No, I saw him in, that was with McKellen and Judi Dench, but he was on the telly in those days doing I, Claudius, and I was absolutely transfixed,
what was it like actually working with him on Big Finish? Because I know I've seen photographs of the two of you together. So it was
a dream, of course. A dream. But because, of course, he's, like a lot of great actors, he's mischievous and funny and light. Everything is, and that's the beauty of it. He wears the skill absolutely brilliantly lightly. you know, like the best kind of people, and, you know, all his learning and everything. And he's funny, and he just eggs you on, you know.
And he loves it, doesn't
and
he?
he loves it. Just and that's infectious, you know, because you know, actors are like everybody else. You know, you're not always in love with it. Sometimes it's hard to, you know, keep the enthusiasm up. But not when someone like him is in the room. You know, it's easy. You know, no, he's joyous, absolutely joyous. You know, more of them, please, Mr. Big Finish. Who's Mr. Big Finish now? Are you Mr. Big Finish, Jason, or is he Mr. Big Finish?
We're both Mr. Big Finish.
Okay, so if there was sort of Mr. Big Finish off,
Jason would win.
A duel.
The company. Jason employs me, so he's Mr. Big Finish.
Can I just check something? Can you hear the dog?
Yes, yeah. I muted you.
Sorry. Right. Wait.
Oi.
But you know what, Nick? Bernard Cribbins was another one. Working with Bernard Cribbins. Yeah. I mean, maybe I don't know if our American friends will know who Bernard Cribbins is.
Well, they'll know him because he appeared latterly in Doctor Who as well. So yeah,
genius.
Yeah, I was just watching Carry On Screaming on some old movie channel. And not Carry On Screaming, Carry On Spying, and he's in that.
Is he? It's all about Bernard Cribbins.
Oh, Cribbins! I thought Derek Jacobi and Carry On Spying. Genius, Bernard Cribbins. Yeah,
brilliant.
He was so good when he came in, wasn't he? He was. Again, you wouldn't believe his age, would you?
But that's another genius actor, you know.
Yeah.
Really.
That was back when we were first working with Sheridan, wasn't it? When Bernard came in.
She didn't know who he was.
No.
But I couldn't get enough oxygen in my body. I was so impressed, you know, and she was thinking I was behaving strangely. But it was Bernard Cribbins.
Who is the actress who he was working with in that? I can't remember her name now. Who plays Aunt Sally? Who played Aunt Sally in?
Una Stubbs.
Una Stubbs, because it was Una.
Well, Bernard did the job because Una had already been booked, and so when Barnaby Edwards was booking it, he said they asked who else is in the cast, and he said, "Well, Una Stubbs is doing it," and they said, "Well,
I'm in.
We'll do it." Yeah.
Yeah, I'll do it for sandwiches.
She's doing.
Yeah. Yeah, actors are like that. Who's in it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
He also said that the lunch was better than the script.
Well, that's probably quite fair.
This is why I was interviewing him, and he was just making up tunes on a guitar as he was talking to me. What a character. Lovely guy. And you know, that was the first time I met him. And then when I was working on the TV series, and he was in several of the episodes that I was doing Dalek voices for, and he always, you know, he remembered me. Hello, Nick. All right. You know, that's incredible. The number of people he'd meet, for him to remember some bloke who sits there with headphones making a funny noise into the microphone.
Not like the Queen of England, eh? She just gave you she just blanked you, didn't she, when she met you?
The future Queen, you mean?
No, but when you met the Queen.
Yeah, well, I don't remember that, so I've obviously blanked her.
Yeah. Bernard Cribbins, just a few weeks back, we digitized, as you do, we digitized some old tapes and stuff, you know, stuff that we'd shot when the children were little, and, you know, nothing else to do. You just take this stuff down the road, get it done. And some films came back of the children when they were babies. And there's a lovely scene of them listening to Bernard Cribbins, aged 2 and 3, reading
Thomas the Tank Engine or something.
Burglar Bill. I'm telling you, do yourselves a favor, find it. Burglar Bill. One of the. You know what? If I was ever famous enough to do Desert Island Discs, that's the book I'm taking. It's an audio book of Bernard Cribbins reading Burglar Bill. I'm telling you, man.
What does Burglar Bill get up to, as if I couldn't guess?
Don't be silly.
He does burgling.
He does burgling, even if it must be burglary. Yeah, he does burgling. And no, I don't want to ruin it. I don't want to tell you the end or anything because I'll spoil it. And if there's children watching, there won't be, but I certainly don't want to spoil it.
They hang him.
He's marvellous. He's quite marvellous. Burglar Bill. It's Jan and Alan Alberg. That's just, you sound so much older than you. That just went over your head, didn't it?
You're only 2 years older than me.
Why don't you remember these things?
I don't know. I don't remember.
Mind you, I had my children 30 years ago. That's why.
That's it.
That'll be why.
My son's only 11.
Ah.
I started late and finished early.
Mine was 32 yesterday.
Wow.
Yeah. 32.
How old's Jake now? Because that's your older one, I take
He
it.
was 30 last week. It's the
30?
birthday. Yeah.
I remember him bouncing in.
Yeah.
That blows my mind.
My children are in their 30s now.
Wow.
It's the birthday season in this house, so it's both mine and the kids in this 2 weeks. It gets a little bit birthday intense around here.
Well, I think our time is just about up, isn't it?
But we haven't even started, have we?
Well, okay, let's start now.
Okay, I was going to say we seem to have talked about everything here. But,
Yeah.
And you've met my dog, so you know.
So
yeah,
it's a good place to end, isn't it? Wishing you a happy birthday. When is it? Is it?
It was the 14th.
Oh.
In the normal run of things, at least the last 10 years is anything to go by. I've tended to be in Long Island.
Yes, I remember the year I was there.
And then we follow on to Jean in Chicago after that. And there's always a birthday happening. There's always a birthday due. But not this year. I suppose some people will have, maybe people born in Feb or March might end up having 2 lockdown birthdays. But for the rest of us, it'll just be the one. What a strange year, chaps.
It is a very strange year.
Well, I mean, this kind of now, you're hearing the bulletins again, and, you know, the news here, everyone's, you know, here in the UK, it's all change again. But there's kind of light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, with vaccines.
But I suppose it's fair to say we won't forget 2020. You know, we'll be talking about this for years, won't we? And maybe as well, we'll, you know, these things, you know, we love going to conventions, and of course there's no substitute for, you know, and I can't wait for the time when it's all okay and we can all meet again, jump on planes, go to these, you know, hug people, be in rooms with thousands of people in and do panels and everything else.
Seems so alien now, doesn't it? The idea of being in a room with thousands of people.
Yeah,
it's just another era. So maybe, you know, maybe going forward there'll be, we will do those, but it might be that there's a mixture of this kind of thing, you know, and the occasional one of them. Maybe that's going to be the new normal. But whatever it is, I wish it would hurry up, because I really miss it, don't you?
Yeah.
And Jace, was it you that persuaded me to do a convention in the first place?
Oh, I had to strong arm you into doing a convention.
I think it probably was way back when, you know.
It was
now you can't stop me.
It's Panopticon in 2003, and it was because I said to you and your agent, I said that Doctor Who magazine had done the 40 years of Doctor Who. It was the 40th anniversary, and they'd done this poll, who was the favourite Doctor. And because Big Finish, the audio Doctor, you'd had such a big impact when you came along with India, you'd actually won the poll of Best Doctor in the history of Doctor Who. And I said,
I want it framed.
Yeah, well, they gave you an award. So
it's under my bed somewhere, maybe it is.
Probably, but that was it. You won, and I said to your agent, he should go and receive his award, and you did. And I remember, if you remember, I came in a taxi round to your flat in London to pick you up, which turned out to be literally round the corner.
I didn't want to go.
You didn't want to go, did you? So we went in, and you were so worried about it that we went to the bar and had a drink first. And in the bar, obviously, all these Doctor Who fans was like, it's going to blow it, because it's going to be a surprise. And all these Doctor Who fans were like, it's Paul McGann.
Because they didn't know.
Yeah, it was a big surprise.
And
I was terrified. I was just terrified.
But do you remember that reaction when you came out in front of, you know, there's 1,400 people there,
yeah, and
you'd never done a convention, and they weren't expecting you, and you walked out, and there was just a wall of noise. I've actually got the video. Andrew,
it was the strangest thing, because it was in that, you know, it was one of those big central London hotels.
Yeah,
and you can get more people into those rooms than you think. And I don't think it was, you know, obviously we were lit, you know, there was a stage or a platform, but I remember being on that stage, you couldn't see, because it was dark after about 10 or 20 rows. It looked as if there were just 100 people in there, 200 people in there, when perhaps there were 10 times that number. So this noise was a real surprise.
Yeah, it was 1,400 people, I know, because I checked afterwards.
Yeah, it was a real surprise. And you see this, like, there's a film of it somewhere, and I don't know what you call it, fight or flight or something, but I look like I'm about to pass out.
Well, do you want me to be naughty and tell them the conversation we had before you went on stage?
Go on.
Okay, so basically I said, well, I had it all planned and I had a list of questions and everything. I said, so what we'll do is I'll go out, I'll introduce you, Paul, and after about half an hour, India will come and join us. And you went, no, we're all going on together. So we all went on together. So I didn't have enough questions for India because she was supposed to join us halfway through.
I'm such a scaredy cat. No, hold my hand. No, just hold my hand.
But it was hilarious because I've seen it on the video where basically you walk out and then within 3 minutes you're doing this.
Yes. Because the thunderous applause, it was like an explosion. I was standing at the side and it was like, I felt like I could feel the blast from them, you know.
Remember, it wasn't long ago, it was only, was it last year? No, year before last, was it? When Chris Eck did his first one. And we were all there, weren't we, in London? And it brought it back, because I remember we all sort of waited, because he'd never done one either. And now he's going to do a huge one in Earl's Court in London. And I think quite a few of us were sort of looking out for him to see when he arrived, you know, knowing he'd be shitting himself. But I caught up with him around the lunchtime. I didn't see him arrive, but I caught up with him around lunchtime. And I was interested to know, you know, hearing that story back again about just how terrifying it was, you know, how he'd fared. And he said he'd been scared, but he absolutely loved it. He had this lovely look in his eyes. You know, he said, it's just fantastic. He said, it's fantastic. You know, he said they were right. He said they were right. You know, the people that had persuaded me to come and to do it were right. You know, he said that everybody.
Well, you may know he's coming back. He's doing Big Finish.
Yeah. And what a fantastic idea.
Yeah, well, when he came and when I talked to him about it at the Gallifrey convention, he said, "Okay, let's talk about it." And the primary reason he was coming back is because of the reaction of the fans and how much love he's been given. And I don't think he really appreciated, because his time on Doctor Who, for whatever reasons, was difficult. I don't think he appreciated how much he was loved in the part.
Yeah, and Chris is Chris, you know. I mean, and, you know, we all, for different reasons, you know, a bit skeptical, maybe doubt it. But I agree. I think you're right. I don't know that he did. He never really twigged how loved he was, you know, and how appreciated he was, and how central he was actually to when we knew, because we talked to the fans all the time. You know, and you know, most often, because, you know, if you played the Doctor, you know, you'll often have a conversation, or someone will say to you, "You're my third favourite Doctor," kind of thing. And you know,
well, that's a good thing, because it's so many.
Well, it is. It's third. At least you're on the podium. I was thinking, you know what I mean. Fourth, you're nowhere. But if at least you're in bronze medal. But you know, but so then the conversation would go on. You know, I said, "Well, who's you?" You know, and a lot of the times it's David Tennant. But also a lot of the times, I was surprised, it's Chris. People adore him, you know. But more than that, you know, he's absolutely, without him, none of it would make sense. No. You know, he's central to the story. He's central to the, you know, he was there when it came back, and
he made it possible for
absolutely,
so many different types of people to play the Doctor. I think. Yeah,
he nicked my costume. That's all I'm going to say on the matter. The bastard. You know. But yeah, I hope his ears are burning, as they say. Now we're talking about him. But that's great news. He's going to come and do Big Finish. You know, again, a fantastic actor.
Yeah.
So when all said,
have you worked with him in the past?
No, never worked with him. I'd love to. Remember the first time I saw him on a film. Because he worked with my little brother on Let Him Have It.
Stephen or?
I know, on Let Him Have It with Mark.
Mark, right.
And Chris, it was Chris's first picture.
Yeah.
And it was about the, what's the name?
He was brilliant in that.
Oh, he was just like, I remember thinking, who is this kid? He was just marvellous. Him and Tom Courtney was in it, wasn't he? I forget
Paul
the name of
Reynolds.
the character. Yeah. And Mark played his friend. What are the characters' names anyway? I've long forgotten. But they were the buddies, and and a policeman ends up dead, and the kid has to go to the gallows and that kind of thing. But Chris was marvelous in it.
It was that really started him off, doesn't it? That was the rocket launch for his career.
My brother Mark, I remember Mark ringing us up in our house. Our Mark, it's actually another fantastic actor, but Mark, he's beautifully intense, Mark, in many marvelous ways, but he's intense, and even the kids at school, he's just known as Mr. Intense or whatever it was. But I remember him ringing us up and going, "You must have just done the first day's rehearsal on that picture." He said, "I've just met someone more intense than me." I go away, have you? And it was Chris Sack.
Yeah.
Bless him. Because Chris is beautifully intense.
Brilliant actor.
There. Yeah.
Well,
I want to. Can you put us together? Come on, Mister. I don't know which Mr. Big Finish to talk to, but any chance of putting us together? Then I can work with him, can't I?
Well,
this is the advantage of having mates.
We can certainly talk to him about it, can't we?
No, don't talk to him. Just tell him I'm in it. You don't have to talk to Chris.
No, I don't think we're in a position to tell him.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Just be firm.
Yeah.
Be firm but loving.
Okay, well, I'll take your advice under advisement.
Yeah.
We are out of time, guys. We've gone over time. We're so BFM. Nice.
It was great to meet you again, boys.
Good to see you.
And love to everyone in Chicago. And stay safe, for heaven's sake. Have a great Thanksgiving. That's gone.
We'll see you next year.
We will definitely see you next year. And what's more, we'll throw our arms around you and give you a big hug.
If it's safe to do so.
Nick Briggs, the voice of caution.
Bye now. Bye.
Bye.
I'm pressing the end of the meeting. Goodbye.